how do we become better observer of our own work? And we do that by actually looking at your work and talk about it, or we can do it. So it will be a lot of actually doing these interactions and looking at it. And you may actually sit in another person's session, but it's primarily about you becoming a better observer. So I love when people see their own session and they're like completely ashamed, they want to leave town. It's like, that's such a wonderful thing to see. So yeah, so that's something that I would love to see happen. Not to shame them, but you know, when they actually do 2 sessions, 3 sessions and see their own progress, oh, the joy that you see, right? And then that kind of learning you will never forget.
More and bigger differences of what I'm doing. Yeah. Sorry to interrupt you just for a sec, and just my colleague Orshi just wrote me that we actually managed to get on YouTube just in a couple of minutes ago. So some people just joined in. So hi there. I'm with Haesun Moon from Canada. My name is Aaron Levendel, and we have Talkie here. Happy that you join us. We're talking about a workshop we're going to have in a month, in the middle of May, from 13 to 14, from 13 and 14. It's going to be morning in Eastern in the States, Canada. It's going to be the afternoon, 4 p.m. in Europe, Central Europe. Yeah, and the title is, again, listen up, the title is Trans/Forming and Inter/Fluencing Meaning in the Making.
So here's a pop quiz. For those of you who heard it and who can actually write it out, you get a prize.
and I couldn't not hear out that you're really into this slash. Can you tell me more about the slash?
The slash. You know, there is this belief that words contain meaning, and that's one perspective. But when I actually when I work with clients or when I work with students, I notice that just like many other philosophers who've been talking about, maybe words do not contain meaning, but it's in how we use the words that actually we are co-creating, constructing meaning. So I found it really interesting when you look at the words like transformative, transformation, and there's the word form in transform. Then the word transform should mean form that changes, or the form that is moving from this to that. And in coaching conversation, what form changes? So that's the first part of it. And then interfluence is a new word that I came up with, but people usually say you influence together. So originally I actually had confluence, but then confluence is like you influence, and that's the end of it, which is not the case in dialogue. It continues on, and it's interfluence. And what happens is words like fluence, like fluid, fluent. So if you think about, Aaron, how you became fluent in another language, that's something that's fascinating to think about. How did you learn to speak? And interfluence actually is, how do we somehow socially become fluent? Because between you and another very close person in your life, you guys have this shorthand of communicating. And how do we become like fluent in each other's patterns and ways? And you know, Aaron, one of the things that I learned from watching my dad, he majored in English literature. And he loves classical music. So growing up, every night at dinner, he will tell me stories about Shakespeare to this guy, and he will always tell me stories. And later on, when I grew up, I realized that those are the stories from the literature. And he majored in English literature. He can tell me, he can lecture, but he doesn't speak English. So when we first moved here, this guy who can really teach English literature could not speak English. And that's really funny. But then I realized that he was becoming a little bit more fluent in a way, socially, because he picked up some gestures. So here's a very North American gesture. And whenever I say something, it doesn't make sense, my dad will look at me and he's like, We know what it means. But
Yeah.
then he will overuse it. He will be, standing outside and neighbors will say hi and he'll be like, oh, it's like, don't do that. It doesn't work in that direction. And he also picked up like expressions that's verbal. So whenever he drops something, he trained himself to say oops instead of other things. So oops
Mm.
is North
Yeah.
American way of saying,
Yeah. Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
But then because he doesn't have that fluency in English, he will say that in Korean accent. So he will be like, oops, it's like, Dad, that that sounds weird. So like I've learned how somebody become fluent and what disfluence looks like in interaction.
Mm.
And sometimes we hear people say, well, this coaching session, I felt kind of stuck. And that's the moment of disfluence. And
Mm.
it's not, many times they actually blame their clients. Oh, the client was resisting and this and that. But what we really do is looking at the moment of what happened. What did you
Yeah.
do? What happened? What did that do? And really looking at what actually happened is so exciting. So anyway, I can go on and on about
Yeah,
the
no, I'm
slash.
absolutely with you. And this is very, yeah. And so what I understand, it's about like we can practice and develop the way we can observe our own conversation. And you're especially excited about the how we co-forming and co-fluencing, or has it happening that we become fluent in each other language in the
Let's hope
client.
so.
And one might can think, and oh, this is another microanalysis workshop. Great. Can you? It is like that.
It's nothing to do with actually micro. It's quite macro. It's macro, and I think one of a misunderstanding you're asking about is that people think microanalysis is just like really analytical way of studying narratives. Well, it is, but that's the form of microanalysis as a research tool. But we need to look
Mm.
at what it does, functions of
Mm.
microanalysis. What happens is using microanalysis is like using like a shovel. And when we study, like if we are talking about the shovel, that's going to be like boring. But if you think about how do we use a shovel so that we can build a house, now that's a totally different story.
Yeah.
Conversation as a co-construction. We construct something and we use different tools. Microanalysis actually is one of those tools to actually make other tools visible.
Mm.
So it's microanalysis is not the main topic, but it has to be embedded. But we may not actually say not even once the word microanalysis, but the entire idea of tracing what our clients tell us and how it changes in our session. The way that we look at it actually is using, it's informed by amazing tools like microanalysis. So we may not use the word in session, but it will be heavily informed in
Yeah.
a playful and lighthearted way.
Yeah. Yeah. So your answer has really inspired my next question. Can can you share one of your latest enlightenment or understanding about your own coaching practice, just like using this approach and tools to observe your own conversations? So what become possible or what become different lately in your own practice?
Yes, I think just 2 weeks ago, I was running this class and somebody did a demo and he didn't feel that it went well. And, the client was like, yeah, I'm not sure about that. So then, and Peter DeYoung and I were actually co-teaching this course. And simply, we gave them homework. And the homework was look at your tape because we were videotaping it and just simply look at your tape again. And he was feeling kind of like I kind of didn't do a good job. So then the question is not so much about you, what you did, but let's look at what the client said and what the client did. So look at your tape again, and every single time throughout your 10-minute tape, 15-minute tape, when the client says anything to do with what I care about, this is what I want, this is what's important to me, highlight them. So don't worry about what you say, but highlight all the time, every single time that client says, this is what I want, this is what's important. And then simply look at how that changes throughout your session. And then his task is, can you please find out all the ways that you are contributing for her to construct that. And I love Peter DeYoung because he actually went home and he actually studied his own tape using that. And he came back, he's like, I did it myself. It's like, Peter is so inspiring because he keeps learning. And I actually looked at 2 tapes that I actually had. And there's so much enlightening things in there when you just focus on what happens to what client says that they want, and they change throughout. And what are you doing to contribute to that change? Right? So that's my sort of like real exciting thing. And that's what I want to try out in the workshop too. Yeah, that's so much fun.
Can't wait to have you. It's going to be really awesome. I'm looking so much forward to this 2 morning/afternoons/ you get it?
Yes, I just got that.
Just for those who are watching us, I just wanted to repeat that we're going to have a workshop with Haesun Moon. It's going to be on the 13th and 14th of May. Morning in the States, in Canada, in the Eastern, and afternoon in Europe. And it's going to be about transforming and interfluencing meaning in the making, and how the solution-focused dialogues works. And so we can become a way better master and observer your own conversation thanks to these 2 half days. I wanted to a little bit like raise the expectations, so I can tell those who haven't been working with Haesun, they imagine a combination of your favorite comedian, your best teacher, and your best friend into one person, and spending 2 times 4 hours with you. It's really, I'm totally serious about it.
Oh my gosh, thank you. Wow.
My best way of learning, it's really with you.
Wow, thank you so much.
And thank you so much. Sure.
I see some chats here. The Family-Based Solution says, love Haesun. Hey, is that Aisha? I think it might be. Hey, good to see you here. But really, I can say the same about you. And, before you go, I really want to say to you that when my parents and when we visited Hungary, and my mom still talks about it, because when we were actually at your house, and then they wanted to go back to the hotel, and you got the taxi for them. And they got in the taxi, and the taxi driver just really drove them around the entire city of Budapest, giving them a tour. My parents are like, oh my gosh, and it's beautiful at night. And when they actually got to their hotel, they were going to pay, and he said it's all paid for. And that was
it's actually really free in Budapest. Yeah, the taxis.
It's all paid for. And my parents are like, this is they couldn't believe that's what happened. So my mom still talks about it as one of the single most favorite memory actually of that entire trip. So thank you, Aaron, for actually creating that memory for them. It means so much to me.
It's really my pleasure.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Wow.
And thank you very much for your time. I just thrilled that you managed to uplift me in 15 minutes. Stop it. Thank you so much. I'm really looking forward to spend 2 half days with you.
Me too.
The best of
See you soon enough.
Have a wonderful